Hey guys, how's it going? So recently I've been messing with the Xenia emulator, and the Xbox 360 and the PS3 was a bit of a weird generation. Like, it lasted a very long time. How long do you ask? A fucking decade. The Xbox 360 got announced when I was in like third grade, and the Xbox One came out when I was in fucking high school. It lasted a fucking decade. And honestly, look back at this generation with nostalgia, I guess. I mean, it's not as good as the sixth generation, but the seventh generation is still good. My thing is, it brings on good and bad things. Like one, the Xbox 360 made gaming a lot more popular than the original Xbox did. No disrespect, I love and respect the original Xbox, but if you think about it logically, in like the early 2000s, most people had dial up. Online was still kind of in its infancy. And of course, the original Xbox wasn't the first console to do online gaming, but I don't know, it kind of birthed it, I guess. With the Xbox 360 made it a lot more popular because, like, think about that era of the internet. It's just, Windows 7, YouTube's popping off, the iPhone was coming out, it made it really easy for the average person to get online. But here's one bad thing this generation brought on: DLCs. Of course, it started off with horse armor. For me, this console generation is kind of a mixed bag. Look, enough bullshit. Let's get started. So I did a test for this video. I played early games that came out for the Xbox 360, so like, 2005 to 2007. And I played late games from the Xbox 360, so 2007 to 2012. And I honestly want to see like what's really the difference. Cause when I played early games, Perfect Dark, AM3, so on and so forth, most early games for the Xbox 360 look really good on a CRT TV, but if I play anything later than, I would say, 2008, 2010, it doesn't really have that effect. Now, obviously, the logical sense is, well, if it's early in the Xbox 360's life cycle, then it's going to look more like the original Xbox. And while, yeah, that does make sense, I don't know, I feel like there's something more to that. Like, yeah, sure, some games fit on a CRT and some games don't. But I want to figure out the switch, like, what exactly is the difference? So throughout this video, you're going to see some B-roll of me playing games on the CRT. I'm not gonna lie to you though. I tried to do that thing that Retro Bird does. By the way, shout out to Retro Bird. I tried to copy what he does, but it did not come out well. Either way though, let's start breaking this down. So the first game I tried out on CRT was Bully Scholarship Edition. Obviously, it's based on the game on the PS2. And this is one of those games that honestly look really, really good on CRT TV. I think this game came out in 2007. So yeah, it's kind of obvious why this game looks good. So the next game I tried out was Burnout Revenge, and it's kind of a mixed bag. So it came out for the 360, the original Xbox, and PS2, so it's like a multi-platform game, but I figure if it came out for the Xbox 360, it's gotta look good, right?
I was just wondering if you wanted to hang out with me and smoke weed and fill our bellies with diet soda and play Burnout Revenge for the PS2.
Not gonna lie, I had to put that in. It would have been a shame not to, but Revenge is a great game in itself. I mean, it's not as good as Takedown, but it's still good. And for this being a very early game for the 360, it looks really good. I mean, I've tried it out on original Xbox, and they both kind of look the same, except, I don't know, the Xbox 360 is a little bit better. It's slight difference, I guess. I don't know. Now, here's an example of a late Xbox 360 game, Tornado Outbreak. And to be honest, this game is a really underrated gem. I beg you, go try it out. It's really fun. Well, surprisingly enough, this game came out in 2010, and I don't know. The game does look decent on a CRT. Obviously, doesn't look as good as earlier games, but I guess it still fits. I will say this, so there is one glaring factor that proves it's a late Xbox 360 game. Whenever the game shows like text or tutorials or messages, it's really small, and reading that on a CRT is really fucking hard. It's blends into the pixels. So not gonna lie, Deadpool's kind of broken on Xenia, but I'm showing this to prove a point. This is another example of a late Xbox 360 game. I feel like this isn't a game that belongs on a CRT, but fuck it for the test. Let's do it. And I'll say this for two reasons. One, obviously, over time the graphics improved on the Xbox 360. Number two, again, can't read text. But yeah, I don't know. It just does not fit on a CRT TV.
When Microsoft put out the Xbox 360 in 2005, it was a rather interesting point in gaming to do so, making the promise of high-definition graphics during a period where standard definition was, well, the standard. You could even tell Microsoft knew this because the launch model of the Xbox 360 didn't even come with an HDMI port. It wouldn't be until the Xbox 360 Elite released in 2009 where it would become a standard feature of the 360. So, for a period of time, developers still had to make games with CRT televisions in mind, and all their quirks. The first thing that's most obvious is the simple fact that 360 allows you to play games in 4x3. Much like the original Xbox, the ability to swap between 4x3 and 16:9 aspect ratios came built into the system, meaning most games would have been made with swapping aspect ratios in mind. I'd say the integration of this was even more successful than the original Xbox, since more games were made with both aspect ratios in mind rather than making a half-hearted attempt to do so with stretched UI elements and such like most games on the original Xbox. Of course, with the existence of widescreen CRTs, this factor isn't the only way the 360 catered to the CRT early in its life. A CRT's inherently blurrier visuals made it so it would be easier to get away with slightly blurry textures and even substandard resolutions. There were quite a large chunk of games that wouldn't quite display at a full 1280 by 720 resolution. With so much variance in it all, it'd be hard to list every instance. With this in mind, the CRT's ability to blend detail would make it a lot easier to accept a game running at a maximum resolution of, say, 1024 by 576. Just as an example. Besides, unless you had an HD CRT, you'd only get a max resolution of 480i anyway. The slight blurriness of a CRT could even impact something as seemingly innocuous as text. You'd have to make sure it wasn't too small or too skinny, otherwise it could potentially blend into the other visuals and make it harder to read than it should be. All that being said, nothing lasts forever. As HD flat screen TVs became the new standard during the 7th generation, games would start being made with them in mind. With the ability to perfectly display a picture, detail that could otherwise be lost on a CRT would wind up becoming more common. Even the aspect ratio support I mentioned before would become less relevant, as plenty of later 360 games would simply opt to letterbox the screen for 4x3 displays as to make full use of the 16:9 aspect ratio. It was simply too much work to support a screen that, at this point, a minority of the audience was using. It goes to show just how much the 7th generation of games would be signified by change with how much happened in it, in part caused by how long it wound up being. It makes for a strange dichotomy for what display would work best for systems like the 360, as it could vary based on the game. Of course, most would just utilize an HD flat screen display for all their games, as it's just what's most convenient these days. But it's undeniable that the games made in the earlier days of the 360's lifespan would have been made with the good old CRT in mind.
Not gonna lie, she was spitting facts better than I can, but I really do look back at the 7th generation with a bit of nostalgia, A lot of bad things and good things came from that generation. I don't know, I kind of miss it. It's like I said before, sure, the Xbox did it, sure, there's a lot of online consoles and games before, but that generation really popularized it. Going back on that time, everybody in school's like, hey, what's your gamer tag and whatnot. I kind of miss it. But either way, though, ladies and gents, like, subscribe, do whatever you want to do in a rush, and tell me down below, what's your favorite Xbox 360 game? Tell me down in the comments, and see you guys later. Peace.
Thank you. Anything else?
My penny?
Your penny?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. Here you go, bro.